Have you ever stopped to wonder what makes some foods just so irresistible? And I'm not just talking about when you're hungry. I mean that deep, almost undeniable pull towards something sweet. Well, today we're going to dive right in and break down the fascinating science of what sugar is actually doing to your brain. Okay, just picture this for a second. Warm, gooey cookies, like right out of the oven. Or maybe a slice of rich, velvety cake. A waffle cone piled super high with ice cream. You getting hungry? That immediate, almost instinctive feeling, that's exactly what we're here to talk about. So, what is it? Why are these foods so hard to resist, even when you know you're not actually hungry? Well, the answer isn't about having more willpower. It all comes down to your brain chemistry. All right, to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to start with the basics. What exactly is sugar? And more importantly, where is it hiding? So, on a basic level, sugar is just a class of molecules we call carbohydrates. Simple enough, right? But the tricky part is that this little molecule is hiding in plain sight in a ton of foods and drinks that we have every single day. And this is where it gets really interesting, because sugar isn't just that white stuff you spoon into your coffee. Food labels are loaded with all these different names for it: glucose, fructose, high fructose corn syrup. Heck, even things that sound kind of healthy like honey or raw sugar. It gets added to so many things you wouldn't expect, like tomato sauce, yogurt, even granola bars. It's practically everywhere. Okay, so what happens the very moment that sweetness hits your tongue? Well, it kicks off this incredible journey straight to your brain. Think of it like a chain reaction, a whole series of dominoes falling one after another. Let's trace that path step by step. First, the sugar hits the sweet taste receptors on your tongue. Right away, those receptors fire a signal to your brainstem. Then, from there, that signal forks off and travels to a bunch of different areas in your forebrain. And here's the most important part. This whole process lights up what's called the brain's reward system. Now, this is the absolute key to understanding sugar cravings. Its whole job is to answer one fundamental subconscious question. And that question is simply, should I do that again? That's it. You know that warm, fuzzy feeling you get after eating an amazing dessert? That is your reward system literally screaming, yes, 100%, do that again. It's the super powerful primal thing that drives our behavior. The main player in this whole operation is a neurotransmitter called dopamine. You can think of dopamine as the major currency of our reward system. When you do something your brain really likes, it pays you with a hit of dopamine, which makes you feel good and, you guessed it, motivates you to do that thing again. And it's not just food that does this. This is the same system that lights up when we're socializing or doing other things we enjoy. But, and this is a really important point, it is the exact same system that gets hijacked by drugs like alcohol, nicotine, or heroin. That right there is a huge piece of this puzzle. All right, now this is where things get really fascinating, because the way your brain's reward system reacts to, say, a sugary donut is totally different from how it reacts to a balanced meal, like chicken and broccoli. So here's the key difference. When you eat a balanced meal, yeah, you get a nice little dopamine reward. But if you eat that same meal over and over, the reward starts to fade. Your brain is basically saying, all right, got it, let's find some other nutrients. But with sugary food, that dopamine response doesn't level out. It just stays high, constantly telling your brain, keep coming back for more. It starts to behave a lot more like a drug than like regular food. And this chart really drives that point home. See that dopamine response for a balanced meal? It's pretty moderate. But the one for sugary food, it's way, way more intense. Your brain just doesn't get bored of the sugar. It just keeps on chasing that really powerful reward. And then, on the flip side, you've got foods that barely trigger this system at all. Take broccoli, for example. It has pretty much zero effect, which, yeah, that probably explains why it's so hard to get kids, or let's be honest, even us, to eat our veggies. So let's put all the pieces together. What's the final verdict on these sugar cravings? What's behind that powerful, irresistible pull? Well, the thing is, when you keep overactivating this reward pathway with lots of sugar, it can kickstart a pretty nasty cycle. You can start to feel a loss of control. You get intense cravings, and you build up a tolerance. And that means you need more and more sugar just to get that same good feeling. And here's something that's so important to remember. Your brain's reward cycle doesn't know the difference between a candy bar and one of those so-called healthy granola bars that's secretly packed with sugar. To your brain, sugar is sugar, and anytime it hits your tongue, it can kick off that same powerful domino effect. So, what's the bottom line here? Look, a single slice of cake now and then isn't the problem, but the science is pretty clear. Overconsumption of sugar, over time, can absolutely have addictive effects on the brain. And so that leaves us with one last question for you to think about. Knowing everything we've just talked about, knowing how your brain responds to this stuff, what does the word moderation really mean to you now?